Hey y'all, it's Andy. As promised, I told you I'd put a video here about how I tune my drum, and I want to make sure I'm a man of my word. So here we go. This is that video on how I tune my drum. So before we get into this and the stuff that's on the card, and talk about a couple things before we get into the actual tuning, I want to let you know that there's some tree guys doing some trimming work that's outside this window. So you might hear some like front loaders or dump trucks or chainsaws. So I apologize about that if it interferes, but hey, those guys are making sure that those limbs don't fall on my van next time I load for a gig, so that's always a good thing. So anyway, thanks to those guys. But anyway, I want to talk about just tuning the drum and what I do to tune mine, some things to keep in mind that might help you. So first is talking about when you're tuning the drum, the difference between clearing the head and tuning the drum. So the idea is clearing the head here is just basically getting the head in tune with itself. So what that means is I want to make sure that all the lugs are the same tension so that everything is singing back equally. So sometimes it means I might have to tighten, loosen. Generally I want to start lower and tighten up to the point that I want. So that means, like, for example, when I tune my head, I'm trying to get it to a D. So when I start the tuning process, I'll actually drop the head to about a C or a C sharp, and so that way when I constantly tighten, it's constantly adding tension to the skin. And the reason why that's important is because of this thing called stiction, and stiction is actually a portmanteau of static friction. It's kind of like how, like, when you tune a guitar string, when you tighten it, it's always going to pull on the string. But if you loosen it a little bit to try to get it down, if you made it a little bit sharp or overshot, is that when that string vibrates, it's going to take a while for it to vibrate into its fully relaxed position. So the little bit of detuning that you did might actually detune more once it starts vibrating. So the idea, in order to avoid that phenomena, that static friction, I always make sure that when I tune a head, I always start low and I always add tension. So that way it can never really vibrate into a looser position and the head goes out of tune. So just a thought, when you're tuning, always try to work from the bottom up. Clearing the head, start about a C, C sharp, so to work my way eventually towards that D. Then the second idea is that tuning is getting the head to the pitch that you want. In the case, like I said earlier, is a D. So like I said, I'll start about a C, C sharp, get the head in tune with itself. And once it's in tune with itself, all the lugs are singing, then I'll bring all the lugs up equal increments until it's up to the pitch that I want. Now, one thing I want to share with this is sometimes, when I've been playing the drum, I put it back in the case and come back to the drum after a while, is I usually notice that there tends to be this axis of tension on the lugs. So I drew a little diagram here. This is kind of like looking down inside the drum with 6 tuners. So I usually find between 2 of the tuners across from each other, there's this, again, axis of tension. It's higher than all the other tuners that are offset from it. The red dots kind of show the ones that might be a little bit low. So, and I'll show you this. I set up my drum to kind of show that idea with it. So actually, let me just move the camera and get in and start that idea. So let's see, let me pull this here. So what I'm going to do is first I want to make sure that I'm tapping the drum correctly to tune it. And let me actually shift this camera over here just to make sure it's a little bit wider view. There we go. I want to make sure I'm tapping the drum correctly to tune it. There's a real particular way that I tap my drum because I want to make sure that I'm hearing just the lug and not the entire head. I know some folks might take their tuners and tap on the lug like this or around it, but I find if you're tapping kind of in front of the lug, you're actually exciting the whole head, which means that you may not necessarily hear exactly what's going on at that lug. The way that I tune is that I take, and I learned this from Norbert Eckermann, the idea is I will find where the lugs are on the shell. For example, so I got the 2 lugs that are right here, and what I'm going to do is tap right on the bearing edge of the drum. That's right where the skin leaves the shell over the bearing edge of the tuning rim to where it goes out to the drum to vibrate. And what I'm going to do is use that kind of bony, harder piece of my finger that's ahead of this my last knuckle. I'm going to tap there using that. But however, I'm going to make sure I don't want to tap like this, because if I tap and stay there, I'm actually muting the skin. But that if I can tap and get off the skin quickly, I'm actually hearing more of the skin ring, the sound of that actual lug. So you hear that ring. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to find that axis. Let's listen to these things. So here's the first lug. This one's slightly high. Let's rotate and check. This one, clearly higher. So high, low. Good. I'll remember where that is. Keep going around. that I can hear now. The same one is high, now this one is low. Rotate and check. Pretty close, but these two are definitely higher than the one that's over here. Come back around, and I bet you since this one is high, I'll hear this one is low and this one is high. And boom, that's it, which means that the axis, that green line from that earlier diagram, is like this. So this has tension, whereas these two and these two are lower. So my goal is, what I want to do is leave this right here. But in small increments gradually, I'm going to bring these two and these two lugs up. So let's start that process. I hear how low this is. I'm going to twist slowly till this one starts to get close to this one. And I hear that go up. But it's also going to bring up this one as well. So I'm going to leave this alone because I know I still got to give some loving to this lug and then these two. So come around, I'll come over opposite here on this one. Get a little closer. Let's hear these two. Hearing this one is high and this one is low. These are getting closer. This one's getting a little closer as well. Give it some love to those other lugs. Keep going around checking them. This one's a little low. So now, when I hear these, not perfect, but they're a lot closer than they were earlier. So once I do that, and again, this is just to show you the process, it'd take a little bit longer if I really want to get tuned. I'm going to press on the skin to kind of stretch it out. Check those. And again, not perfect, but a lot closer than where they were. Where I started again was finding that axis and then starting to match the other lugs to it. So then the next thing I'll do is if the head is cleared, singing and all the lugs are by itself, the next thing I do is then I want to tune it to that pitch that I need. So you're going to need some kind of a pitch reference as well. In this case, I actually use this tipper by Stevie Moises. This is that EM SIG tipper, and it's got a hole in the back of it. And if you blow on that hole like it's a flute, that's actually A-ish. So what I'll do then, if I take this handy dandy melodica, and I take that A, and I just sing a scale down the D, drop the octave, sing my way down to D, drop it. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I want to do to get my drum to, is that D, because it's going to match some common tones of the other instruments in the ensemble. Let's hear where it's at. Overall, fairly close. So what I do is then I could hear that one of the lugs is a little bit lower. So what I do is if I'd start the head lower to clear it and then bring it up to that D, and just make equal adjustments all the way around. And then once it's at D, there you go, that's it. But anyway, just wanted to share some of the thoughts, ideas, and the process that I use to tune the drum. If you got any questions or comments, please feel free to drop them below in the conversation, or respond to the comments in the YouTube video that I'm about to post here. But hey, thanks, be well, be safe, and I hope to see some of you guys in person. Cheers, bye. Stop this video here.